Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome to TNM News Edition, the edition which gives you a summary of the various news from Mali. In today's program, we have the March of the Movement Republican and its allies of the Faso Dambe platform, which took place this Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. The holding of the first Council of Ministers, the press conference of the collective of the population of Aguelok, and finally, we have the 59th Ordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS. Without further ado, as announced in our previous edition, the Movement Republican and its allies of the Faso Dambe platform have this Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021, organized a peaceful march to support the authorities of the transition, but above all, to ask for the certification by the United Nations of the election to come, as well as the lifting of sanctions on Mali. This march, which brought together thousands of Malians, took as its route the labor exchange instead of independence. It must be said that the march was a great success because despite the heavy rain, the militants and sympathizers of the Republican movement came out in numbers to respond to the call of the party's president, Mr. Ainea Ibrahim Kamara. During her speech, Mrs. Mariam Samake, first vice president and spokesperson for the party, reiterated the movement Republican support for the transition. She also called for the lifting of sanctions against Mali and insisted on the request for certification of election by the United Nations. This march was an opportunity for this young political movement to demonstrate that it is not on the sideline of the Malian political scene and that it intends to make its voice heard. The movement Republican is more determined than ever to aim for the presidency of Mali. Simultaneously with the march, the president of the MR addressed his supporters and sympathizers. He thanked them for their participation in the march and called on all Malians in love with democracy to join the MR and assure that the MR is in the healthy search for power. That is to say that everything in the MR is done in transparency. He then focused on the memory of the victims of the suicide attack which targeted the soldiers for Operation Barkhane. This Wednesday, June 16, the President of the Transition, Colonel Assimi Goïta, chaired the first Council of Ministers. At the opening of the session, the President of the Transition, Head of State, congratulated the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Mr. Choguel Kokala Maiga, as well as members of the government for the appointments. The Head of State said that the task of the transition will focus on the following points: improving security throughout the territory, political and institutional reforms, good governance, transparency, and reduction of the state of life, the efficient and intelligent implementation of the agreement for peace and reconciliation resulting from the Alger process, the organization of credible and transparent elections on schedule. In addition, the transitional president instructed the new government to continue the projects already open in order to guarantee an appeasement of the social climate. The Prime Minister, in turn, thanked the Head of State for the confidence placed in him and in members of the government. He also undertook to lead government actions toward the achievement of the missions assigned to the government by the Head of State. On June 18th, the Aguelok People's Collective held a press conference to demand the relocation of the MINUSMA camp outside the town of Aguelok, which they consider to be a permanent danger to the town's civilian population. The collective states that this danger is mainly due to the proximity of the camp of the Chadian contingent of MINUSMA to the civilian homes. Indeed, it should be remembered that the said camp is the object of repeated attacks by terrorist groups causing numerous civilian casualties. According to the president of the collective, their goal is not the departure of MINUSMA, but rather to relocate the camp outside the city so that the civilian population feel much safer. He added that the MINUSMA camp ensures that the town of Aguelok is in the camp, which increases the risk for the population in the event of an attack on the camp. The president of the collective stressed that the main objective of this press conference is to inform the national and international opinion of the danger to the population of Aguelog with this MINUSMA camp. Finally, to close today's edition, the 59th Ordinary Summit of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS was held in Accra this Saturday, June 19th. During this summit, Mali shone through its absence because it was suspended from all the bodies of the said institution. During its final communique, the Summit of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS took note of the appointment of a civilian prime minister as well as the formation of the new government. It also took note of the commitment of the Malian authorities to respect the deadline for the election, in particular, the presidential election in February 2022. According to the same conclusion, a monitoring committee will be set up to monitor the electoral calendar revealed on April 15, 2021. Finally, the Summit of Heads of State of ECOWAS noted the positive development in Mali and remained in the perspective of support. In front of the journalists, the president of the Commission of ECOWAS, Mr. Jean-Claude Cassibro, declared that, I quote, "At this stage, although they noted positive evolution, they felt they had to maintain the suspension because they want to verify the solidity of the progress made. The heads of state want more assurance on this progress." We thank you all for listening to us today, and until we meet again next time, have a great time on TNM News.